The unexpected encounter. A cold night in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's winter was unrelenting. The wind screamed through the alleys, whipping snowflakes into tiny whirlwinds that danced over cracked sidewalks. Streetlights flickered like dying candles, casting long, distorted shadows across the deserted streets. The city, usually alive with noise, was eerily silent. It was the kind of night where people stayed indoors, huddled in warmth, leaving the streets empty except for those who had no choice but to face the cold. Malik Carter was one of them. 15 years old and already shouldering responsibilities that most adults wouldn't dare face, Malik had grown up fast. His mother, Angela Carter, worked tirelessly, cleaning offices by day and waiting tables by night. Even with 2 jobs, their small apartment in Flatbush was barely enough to keep them afloat. Bills stacked up faster than they could pay them, and Malik had vowed to help in any way he could. Most kids his age were inside playing video games, texting friends, or complaining about homework. Malik was out here, shoveling sidewalks for loose change, running errands for the bodega owner, or helping the old man on the corner carry his groceries. Tonight was no different, except it was. Tonight, fate had something else in store for him. The man in the alley. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a sound, a low, muffled grunt, barely audible over the howling wind. Malik was passing a narrow alley near Kingston Avenue, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his patched-up hoodie, when he heard it. He froze. His instincts screamed at him to keep walking. The streets of Brooklyn weren't safe, and Malik had seen enough trouble in his short life to know that getting involved could be dangerous. But something about that sound, it wasn't just a random noise. It was pain. He took a hesitant step toward the alley, peering into the darkness. A figure lay slumped against the wall, half hidden in the shadows. Even from a distance, Malik could tell the man was in bad shape. His clothes were expensive, a torn designer coat, dress shoes that looked like they belonged at some fancy event, not in a Brooklyn alley. But his face was bruised, his lips split, blood staining the fresh snow beneath him. Malik swallowed hard. This was not his problem. He had enough of his own. He should walk away. But then, the man groaned, shifting slightly, his breath visible in the freezing air. He was alive. And Malik knew, deep in his gut, that if he left this man here, he might not be for long. With a frustrated sigh, Malik made his decision. He stepped into the alley. A face the world knew. "Hey, mister. You good?" Malik's voice came out cautiously, hovering between concern and wariness. The man's head tilted slightly, blinking up at Malik with dazed, unfocused eyes. Malik hesitated. Something about his face was familiar. The dim light of the street lamp barely illuminated his features, but as Malik stepped closer, his heart nearly stopped. No way. It couldn't be. The bruises and dried blood made it harder to recognize him at first, but Malik had seen this face 1,000 times before, on movie posters, interviews, and TV screens. The man lying beaten and barely conscious in this Brooklyn alley was none other than Keanu Reeves. Malik's breath hitched. His mind raced through 1,000 questions, but only one really mattered right now. What the hell was Keanu Reeves doing here? And who had done this to him? A desperate plea. Keanu groaned, trying to sit up, but his body was sluggish, uncooperative. "Whoa, take it easy," Malik said, crouching beside him. Up close, he could see just how bad it was. The bruises weren't just random. They looked like the work of someone who knew how to hurt people, a professional. Keanu's gaze sharpened slightly as he finally seemed to register Malik's presence. "You need to get out of here," Keanu muttered, his voice hoarse. "What?" Malik frowned. "Nah, man, you need help." Keanu shook his head, wincing from the effort. "They might come back." Malik felt a chill, and not from the cold. "Who's they?" he asked, his voice lower now, scanning the alley. No answer. Keanu's eyes fluttered, his body going limp. "Aw, hell no, Malik muttered. He glanced around. The streets were still empty, but for how long? This wasn't good. If whoever did this came back. Malik clenched his jaw. He had to move. No, let's see where the boy takes him first. Now, an impossible decision. Malik had two options. Call the cops. It was the logical choice. Keanu Reeves was a big deal. His attack would be all over the news. The police would handle it. Help Keanu himself. The problem: cops weren't always friendly to kids like Malik. Even if he had nothing to do with this, people saw a black teenager in a hoodie next to a beaten-up celebrity, and suddenly he was the suspect. Malik had seen it happen before. The choice wasn't easy. But in the end, it wasn't really a choice at all. Malik sighed. Guess it's my lucky day, huh, Mr. Hollywood. He hooked Keanu's arm over his shoulder. It was like lifting a sack of bricks. The man was heavier than he looked, but Malik gritted his teeth and pushed forward. He had to get Keanu somewhere safe. And fast. The watchful eyes. As Malik struggled to get Keanu out of the alley, he failed to notice the dark SUV parked at the end of the street. Inside, a pair of eyes watched them. A hand reached for a phone. A number was dialed. They found him, the voice murmured. Should we intercept? A pause. Then, cold and measured, the reply came. A desperate escape. Brooklyn's night hides many secrets. The cold bit at Malik's face as he half-carried, half-dragged Keanu Reeves through the empty streets. His mind raced, heart pounding in his chest. This was insane. 15 minutes ago, he had been just another Brooklyn kid trying to scrape together a few extra dollars to help his mom. Now he was helping one of the most famous actors in the world escape from God knows who. Keanu wasn't just injured, he was fading fast. Malik could feel the older man's weight growing heavier against him, his steps slower, his body sagging like he was ready to collapse again. Come on, man, stay with me, Malik urged, shifting Keanu's arm more securely over his shoulder. Keanu groaned but said nothing. He was barely conscious. Malik's apartment was too far, too dangerous. If someone had beaten Keanu and left him in that alley, they might have been watching, waiting. Taking him home would only put his mother in danger. There was only one place close enough: the diner. His mother's diner. It was a gamble, but it was his only choice. The shadow that follows. As Malik trudged forward, he had no idea that someone was watching him. From the dark SUV parked near the alley, a figure sat in the driver's seat, their gloved fingers drumming on the leather steering wheel. Through the tinted window, they observed Malik carefully, their breath fogging up the glass. He's moving, the driver murmured into a headset. A voice on the other end replied, Let him. We need to know where he takes him. A pause. Then, with a low chuckle, the voice added, The boy doesn't even realize what he's stepped into. The driver's cold smile spread. Neither did Keanu. The diner's warm glow. The diner sat on a quiet street, tucked between a laundromat and an old bookstore that had been closed for years. The sign above the door flickered, Maggie's Diner. But everyone in the neighborhood just called it Miss Angela's. Malik kicked the door open with his foot, struggling under Keanu's weight. Inside, the warmth was instant. The smell of coffee, fried eggs, and fresh bread filled the air. The diner wasn't busy, just a couple of late-night customers, an old man reading a newspaper, and a truck driver nursing a steaming cup of coffee. Behind the counter, Angela Carter, Malik's mother, turned at the sound of the door. Malik, what the? Her voice cut off when she saw Keanu Reeves slumped against her son, bruised, battered, and barely conscious. Angela's eyes widened in shock. Malik barely managed to ease Keanu into a booth before she rushed over. Ma, I need your help, Malik said, his voice urgent. He's hurt bad. Angela knelt beside the actor, her hands moving instinctively. Before she was a waitress, before life got hard, she had been a nurse. Old habits didn't fade. She checked Keanu's pulse, then gently lifted his swollen eyelids. "This is bad," she muttered. "What happened?" Malik hesitated. "I don't know. I just found him like this." Angela's gaze snapped to his. There was something in her eyes, something Malik didn't understand. Then she whispered, "Malik, do you know who this man is?" "Yeah," Malik said. "Keanu Reeves. Everybody knows him." Angela swallowed hard. "No," she whispered. "Not just him. Not just an actor." Malik frowned. "What are you talking about?" Angela turned to Keanu, gripping his hand. "Keanu," she murmured. "It's been a long time." Keanu groaned but slowly opened his eyes. When he saw Angela, recognition dawned. "Angela," he rasped. Malik stared. His mother and Keanu Reeves knew each other. The buried past. Angela exhaled, her fingers tightening around Keanu's. "You should have stayed away," she murmured. Keanu coughed, wincing. Didn't have a choice. Malik felt his world tilt. "Okay, hold up. Can someone explain what the hell is going on?" Angela sat back, looking at her son. There was pain in her eyes. "Malik, listen to me," she said carefully. "Before I had you, before we ended up in Brooklyn, I worked for a very powerful family. A family that was tied to things bigger than you can imagine." Malik frowned. "What family?" Keanu was the one who answered. "The Laurent family," he murmured. The name meant nothing to Malik. But Angela flinched. "You worked for them?" Malik asked, eyes narrowing. "Why would you?" "I was a nurse," Angela cut in. "A private nurse. And one day I was assigned to take care of their daughter. She was different, special. And because of that, a lot of people wanted her gone." Malik's mouth went dry. Keanu inhaled sharply. Angela saved her life. Angela nodded. "I made a choice that night, to protect the Heiress, to help her escape. Because of that, I had to run. I changed my name. I thought I was safe." She looked at Keanu, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But if they found you," Keanu sighed, "then they know you're still alive." Malik's stomach dropped. Angela squeezed his hand. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered. "But you're in this now." The men in black. The front door swung open. 3 men in black suits stepped inside. The truck driver at the counter glanced up, but quickly turned back to his coffee, sensing the tension in the air. Malik's blood ran cold. The men's eyes scanned the diner. And when they landed on Keanu and Angela, they smiled. Keanu sat up slowly. "Stay behind me," he muttered to Malik and Angela. Malik's hands clenched into fists. The tallest of the men stepped forward. "Mr. Reeves," he said smoothly, "you're a hard man to find." Keanu wiped the blood from his mouth and gave a slow, knowing smirk. "Not hard enough, apparently." Angela pulled Malik close. "We have to get out of here," she whispered. But the men blocked the exit. Trapped. Malik's heart pounded. For the first time in his life, he realized. This wasn't just about Keanu. It wasn't just about his mother. This was about him now, too. And somehow, he had just become a part of something much, much bigger. The hidden connection. The diner's last stand. The tension in the diner could have been cut with a knife. Malik's heart was pounding in his chest, adrenaline rushing through his veins. The men in black suits had made their way in, and there was no turning back now. His mother, Angela, pulled him closer, her eyes filled with worry. But there was something else too, something Malik couldn't quite place. Keanu Reeves, battered and broken, was still managing to hold his ground. He sat upright, the weight of the world on his shoulders, but his eyes still held a spark of defiance. He looked at the men who had just entered. And though he was weak, Malik could see something in him that had always been there. The strength of a survivor. "Mr. Reeves," the tallest man said again, his voice smooth and cold, with a sharp edge. "We've been looking for you." Keanu's lips twitched into a smile, though it was laced with pain. "Well, you found me, but I don't plan on sticking around long enough for you to do what you came here to do." Malik didn't understand what was happening. Who were these men? What did Keanu have to do with them? Why had his mother turned so pale when they walked in? His mind raced as the men's cold eyes scanned the diner, assessing the situation, looking for the next move. There was something about the way they carried themselves, calculating, methodical, like they knew exactly how this would play out. They weren't just after Keanu, were they? Malik could sense it. They were after something more. Keanu slowly shifted in the booth, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "You know," he began, his voice low but carrying, "it's funny how you always think you're out of their reach, only for them to show up at the most inconvenient time. But you know, I guess that's just how this game goes, right?" The men exchanged knowing glances, as if they were expecting Keanu to say something like that. They were not surprised by his bravado. In fact, it seemed to amuse them. "You think you have a choice in this, Mr. Reeves?" the man in the middle asked, his voice soft but threatening. He was younger than the others, with sharp features and piercing eyes. He didn't look much older than Malik, but his presence was chilling, like he had the weight of 1,000 secrets behind him. Keanu's expression darkened. "I don't have a choice, but I sure as hell can make it hard for you to take me." The silence was deafening. Angela stepped forward, moving between Malik and the men. Her movements were deliberate, calculated, like someone who had been forced to deal with dangerous situations in the past. "Enough," she said, her voice calm but firm. "What do you want?" The man in the center chuckled darkly. "We want what's ours." His eyes flickered to Keanu. "And we want you, Miss Carter. We've been looking for you for a very long time." Malik's pulse spiked. The realization hit him like a freight train. His mother knew them. She knew who they were. "Who are you?" Malik demanded, stepping forward, his fear giving way to a burning sense of injustice. "What do you want with us? You've already done whatever you wanted to Keanu. What more do you want?" The youngest man, the one with the cold smile, glanced at Malik as if he were nothing more than an annoying fly buzzing around them. "You really don't know, do you, kid?" he said. "Your mother was involved with something far beyond what you can imagine. This isn't about Keanu Reeves, and this isn't about you. This is about the Laurent family." At the mention of the Laurent family, Malik's stomach twisted. The name meant nothing to him, but the way the men spoke, like it was a thing to be feared, sent chills down his spine. His mother's eyes widened, and for the first time since he had entered the diner, Malik saw genuine fear in her eyes. The Heiress's legacy. "You really don't understand," Angela said, her voice now trembling slightly. "The Laurents, they run everything. They have their hands in every business, every government agency, every organization. They control more than you'll ever know. And I was part of it. I didn't have a choice. I had to protect her." Malik's head was spinning. Her? Who was her? Keanu shifted, groaning slightly, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Angela. "You're right. They control everything. And they always get what they want. But you're not getting her. You're not taking her from me." The man in the middle chuckled darkly, his hand resting on the table in front of him. "You think you can stop us, Reeves? You're weak. You're finished." Keanu's response was almost imperceptible. His eyes locked on the man. "The only thing that's finished is your illusion of control." Angela turned to Malik, her face pale, and her voice nearly a whisper. "Malik, this is bigger than anything I've ever been involved in. I saved her life, and now they'll stop at nothing to make sure I never tell anyone what I know." Malik was confused, but one thing was becoming clear. His mother was connected to something monumental, something dangerous. This wasn't just about Keanu Reeves being in trouble. It was about an entire system of power and corruption that ran far deeper than Malik could understand. And now, Malik had unknowingly been dragged into it. "You need to leave," Angela said, urgency creeping into her voice. "Take Keanu and get out of here. Run. I'll deal with them." Malik shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you. Not now." A dangerous game. The men were growing impatient, their eyes flickering between Angela and Keanu. The youngest man, who had been silent for the longest time, spoke again. "You don't have a choice, Miss Carter. The Laurent family doesn't leave loose ends. Your choices were made long ago. You just didn't realize the cost." The eldest man, who had been the one to speak to Keanu, leaned forward with a smirk. "You see, Mr. Reeves, this isn't just about protecting someone who doesn't belong to you. It's about the legacy. Her legacy." He pointed at Angela. Malik felt the air in the diner grow thick with tension. The word legacy hung in the air like a cloud, and it took all his willpower to stand there, frozen, not fully understanding but feeling that the weight of this moment would change everything. Everything he knew was about to come crashing down. Keanu's eyes were cold now, a resolve settling in. He had been hiding it, but Malik could see it now. Keanu wasn't just an actor. He wasn't just a celebrity. He was part of something far bigger than anyone realized. "You think you've won," Keanu spat, his voice hoarse, "but with power, but you haven't. You've underestimated us, and that will be your downfall." The reckoning. For a brief moment, there was silence. The kind of silence that came before a storm. And in that silence, Malik felt something shift deep inside him. This wasn't just his mother's fight anymore. This was his fight too. In that moment, Malik realized that he had been handed a choice: to run, to hide, or to stand up and fight for something greater. And for the first time, Malik didn't hesitate. He looked at Keanu, who met his gaze with a steadfast resolve. And then, with a determination he hadn't felt before, Malik stood taller, his hands clenched at his sides. "We're not going anywhere," Malik said, his voice steady. "You want my mom. You'll have to get through me first." Keanu smiled through the pain, his eyes shining with pride. The pursuit begins. The calm before the storm. The diner was filled with tension. Malik stood tall, his fists clenched, eyes locked on the three men in black suits. Angela stood beside him, her face pale but resolute. Keanu, still wounded but not broken, slowly sat up straighter, his eyes flickering from the men to Malik, a quiet but intense look of approval in his gaze. The men, too, were still. They hadn't expected this. They had expected fear, hesitation, maybe even submission. But not this. Not defiance. The tallest of the men, the one who had been leading the charge, took a step forward. His face was calm, but there was a coldness in his eyes that sent a shiver down Malik's spine. "Kid," he said, his voice low and controlled, "you don't understand what you're getting into." He looked at Malik with a mix of disdain and something deeper, something more calculating. "You think this is about protecting someone. This is bigger than you, than any of us. This is about power. The kind of power that shapes everything." Malik didn't flinch. He wasn't going to let fear take hold. Not tonight. "You're right," Malik said, his voice steady. "I don't understand everything. But I'm not going to let you take my mom or Keanu. Not while I'm standing." The youngest man, who had been quiet until now, sneered. "You're just a kid. You think you can stop us?" "The Laurents." "Enough," the lead man interrupted, raising a hand to silence his companion. He turned his attention back to Keanu. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Mr. Reeves. The choice is yours. But we will get what we came for, one way or another." Keanu's lips curled into a wry smile, despite the blood still staining his face. "You won't. Not if I can help it." The men exchanged glances, their patience beginning to thin. The silence was suffocating. Everyone in the diner seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for the next move. And then, just as Malik thought they might finally make their move, the lead man gestured toward the door. "Stay out of our way," he said, his voice low but laden with menace. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." And with that, they turned and left, the door slamming shut behind them. A new reality. Malik stood frozen, his mind racing. What just happened? The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the kind of fear and uncertainty that Malik hadn't felt in a long time. But despite everything, he wasn't afraid. He couldn't afford to be. His mother needed him, and Keanu needed him. "We have to leave now," Keanu said, his voice steady despite his injuries. Angela's face was a mixture of concern and worry. She knew the game had changed. They were no longer safe in Brooklyn. "Keanu's right," Angela said. "We can't stay here. They'll be back, and they won't be so kind next time." Malik nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "Where do we go? How do we get out of here?" Angela grabbed a small, tattered bag from behind the counter. She had packed it a long time ago, for emergencies just like this. She moved with the practiced speed of someone who had seen things go wrong more than once in her life. Keanu, now on his feet with Malik's help, glanced at her, his eyes narrowed. "The Laurent family has too many eyes everywhere. We can't just run. They know who you are, Angela. They'll track us no matter where we go." Angela paused, her hand hovering over the bag, her expression hardening. "I know, but there's one place they won't find us. At least not immediately." Malik's confusion deepened. "Where?" Angela looked at him, then at Keanu. "I'll explain on the way. Just trust me." The hidden safe house. The plan was simple. Get to the safe house. Angela led the way, moving quickly through the back door of the diner and into the alley. She was calm, but Malik could see the strain in her movements, the way her eyes darted around, scanning for threats. She knew better than anyone how dangerous the Laurents were. They had always been after her, but now they were after her son too. Keanu, though injured, moved with surprising speed, never once slowing Malik's pace. The cold night air bit at their skin, but Malik didn't feel it. He was focused. He was in survival mode now. They made their way down narrow side streets, taking turns Malik wasn't sure he'd remember. Brooklyn had always felt like home, but tonight it was a maze of danger and deception. Every corner, every shadow seemed to hold a potential threat. Eventually, Angela stopped in front of an unmarked door, barely noticeable, hidden in the shadow of a larger building. She knocked 3 times. After a few seconds, a small window slid open, and a pair of eyes appeared. It was a brief exchange of words in hushed tones, then the door creaked open. Inside, a few men stood waiting. They were part of the network Angela had built over the years, old allies who still owed her a favor. "Get in," one of them said, ushering them inside. They entered a dimly lit apartment that smelled faintly of must and old books, with barely enough furniture to fill the space. Malik barely noticed the interior. His thoughts were consumed with the unknowns, the Laurents, the danger that loomed over them, the feeling that there was a much larger puzzle at play. Angela turned to Malik once they were all inside. "I know this place isn't much, but it's secure, for now." Keanu collapsed onto a worn couch, wincing at the movement but settling in. He wiped his brow with a grimace, and then looked at Malik, his voice steady. "The Laurents will come after us, Malik. They'll stop at nothing to find us. And when they do, it won't be pretty." Malik nodded. He had a feeling he wasn't getting the whole story, but he also knew that things were getting more complicated by the second. This wasn't just about hiding from some criminals. This was something far bigger. The first attack. The hours that followed felt like days. The tension in the safe house was unbearable. They hadn't said much, just waiting, listening for any sign of danger, every sound amplified in the silence. Malik's heart pounded in his chest. And then, just as they thought they could breathe, the first shot rang out. The sound of glass shattering sent a jolt through Malik. He dropped to the floor instinctively, his mind racing. Keanu cursed under his breath. "They're here." A second shot, then a third. The windows of the safe house shattered, and a man's voice rang out from outside. "You can't run forever, Carter. They have found them." A deadly decision. Angela stood, her face hardening. "Malik, stay down. Do not move until I say so." Malik's heart raced as she moved toward the back of the room, pulling open a trapdoor hidden under the floorboards. She motioned for them to follow. "This way, quickly." As they descended into the darkness, the world above them erupted in chaos. Malik could hear the sounds of men shouting, of gunfire ricocheting off walls. He had never felt fear like this before. Keanu moved first, his face set in determination despite the blood still staining his shirt. "Stay close," he said to Malik. "If we're going to survive, we need to stay ahead of them. The Heiress's secret, the depths of the underground." Malik's heart thundered in his chest as they scrambled through the narrow, cold tunnel beneath the safe house. The air was damp and smelled faintly of mildew, but the weight of what was happening above ground, the chaos, the gunfire, the men searching for them, pushed any thoughts of discomfort from his mind. They were being hunted. Malik kept his head low, following Keanu and his mother through the labyrinth of dark passageways. The distant sound of footsteps above ground echoed faintly, but they had no time to look back. Every minute, every second, they needed to stay ahead of the Lawrence, who were more relentless than any enemy Malik had faced. They turned another corner in the dark, and Malik nearly stumbled over an old crate. His breath quickened, but Angela was right ahead, her movements swift, calm, practiced. She had done this before. "Keep going, Malik," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tension. "We're almost there." Malik barely heard her, his mind preoccupied with questions that refused to be answered. Who were these people? Why did the Lawrence want his mother so badly? And why was Keanu involved in all this? He had known Keanu as a celebrity, a famous actor, someone untouchable. But now, seeing him injured, running for his life, Malik was beginning to understand that there was more to Keanu than what the world saw on TV. Something deeper, something more dangerous. The hidden legacy. They emerged into another small room, this one filled with old furniture covered in sheets and dust. There were no windows, only a single light hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows on the walls. Angela closed the door behind them, locking it with a soft click. Keanu collapsed into an old armchair, his breathing shallow but steady. He wiped his brow and looked around, his face tense. Malik didn't know what to say. He had so many questions, but the urgency of their escape had silenced him, kept him from asking. But now, the silence was unbearable. "Keanu, what is going on?" Malik finally demanded. "Who are the Lawrence? And why are they after us?" "After my mom." Keanu leaned forward, his eyes meeting Malik's with a depth that seemed to hold all the weight of the world. He looked at Angela, who was standing near the door, watching for any signs of pursuit. Angela exhaled, as if she knew this moment was inevitable. She turned to Malik, her expression a mixture of sorrow and regret. "It's time you knew the truth," she said softly. "Keanu is not just an actor. He's part of something much bigger, something that has been hidden for generations." Malik looked from his mother to Keanu, confused. Keanu nodded, his gaze unwavering. "The Lawrence family," Keanu began, "is one of the most powerful families in the world, but not just because of their wealth. They control everything, governments, businesses, entire industries. But the real power they hold is a secret that has been passed down through generations." Angela stepped forward, her voice heavy with the weight of the years she had spent hiding from this truth. "I wasn't just in Heiress, Malik. I was chosen to protect someone the Lawrence wanted to use, someone who held the key to their legacy." Malik's mind spun as he tried to process what Angela was saying. "Who are you talking about?" "Her name is Livia Lawrence," Keanu said, his voice low but intense. "She's the heir to the Lawrence fortune, the one person who can control everything the family owns. But more than that, She's the one who knows their most dangerous secret. She is the key to everything. Angela's eyes softened as she looked at Malik. I was hired to protect Livia, Malik. I was the one who kept her safe when the Laurent family wanted to use her for their own gain. They would have had her locked in a cage if I hadn't stepped in. But when they found out I was trying to get her out, they came after me. And they've been hunting me ever since. Malik was in disbelief. So you worked for them, for a family that has more power than the government, and now they want us. Angela nodded grimly. Yes, but it's more complicated than that, Malik. Livia isn't just a powerful heiress. She's been hidden away for her own safety. The Laurents would have used her, manipulated her, twisted her into a weapon to extend their control over the world. And that's why they're after me. They want me to tell them where she is. Keanu shifted in his chair, his eyes narrowing. We were able to keep her hidden for years, but now it's too late. They found us. The hidden Heiress. Malik's mind was racing. This was too much to take in. The Laurents, a family with immense power, had been looking for Livia, and somehow his mother had been caught in the middle of it all. He had no idea how deep his mother's past ran, how far back the danger stretched. But now, there was no turning back. Keanu stood up, his movements slow but determined. Livia is the key, Malik. The Laurents will do anything to find her. And now they know Angela is the only one who can lead them to her. Malik stepped back, his breath shallow. But where is she? If they can find her, why haven't they already? Angela's eyes filled with a sadness that Malik had never seen before. We hid her, Malik. We kept her safe for as long as we could. But Livia is. She's not who the Laurents think she is. What do you mean? Malik asked, confused. Keanu took a deep breath. Livia's not just an heiress. She's the key to ending the Laurent dynasty. She's the one who can expose them, bring their empire down. That's why they want her. And that's why they're after your mother, because she's the only one who knows where Livia is. Malik felt a weight settle in his chest. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for something bigger. The Laurent family's empire, built on lies, manipulation, and power, was teetering on the edge of collapse. And somehow, Malik and his mother were caught in the middle of it. A dangerous choice. Angela moved toward Malik, her face etched with worry. There's no way we can hide anymore, Malik. The Laurents are closing in on us. And if they find Livia before we can get to her, everything we've done will be for nothing. Keanu nodded. They have eyes everywhere. We can't trust anyone anymore, not even the people who claim to be allies. The Laurents will stop at nothing to find Livia. And you, Angela. They know we're getting close to her, and when they catch us, they won't just kill us. They'll destroy everything we've ever worked for. Malik felt his stomach twist in fear. So what do we do now? How do we fight them? We don't fight them head-on, Angela said, her voice firm. We run. We find Livia before they do. We get to her first, and we end this. Keanu stepped forward, his eyes hard with resolve. This isn't just about survival anymore, Malik. This is about stopping the Laurents before they can destroy everything we've ever known. Malik felt the weight of their words settle deep inside him. He had never wanted to be part of something like this. He had never asked for any of this, but he was in it now. And the only way out was to keep moving forward. It was time to find Livia. The final stand. The road to Livia. The next few days felt like a blur of movement. Malik, Angela, and Keanu had been forced to leave behind their old lives, packed up what they could carry and ran, moving under the cover of darkness, trusting no one. The Laurents were everywhere. Their reach was infinite, their power overwhelming, and every step they took brought them closer to a dangerous and unknown future. But one thing was clear. They had no choice but to keep moving. They had spent the last 2 days following a trail of whispered clues, hidden messages, and cryptic contacts Angela had built over the years. Every piece of the puzzle brought them closer to Livia, the elusive Heiress who had been hidden away from the world. And yet, the closer they got to her, the more dangerous it became. Malik's mind raced, struggling to understand how everything had unfolded so quickly. A few days ago, he had been just a kid trying to help his mom scrape by. Now, he was at the center of a conspiracy that spanned decades, a battle for power, survival, and the fate of the Laurent family's empire. A tense decision. They arrived at an old, abandoned farmhouse deep in the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where time had stood still, surrounded by overgrown trees and broken fences, hidden away from prying eyes. It had taken every ounce of their willpower to make it here without being followed, but they knew this would be the safest place to regroup. Keanu leaned against the wall, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a cautious intensity. His wounds were still healing, but Malik could tell that the actor was no longer the man he had been. Keanu was more than an actor now. He was someone who had seen the world's darkest corners and had lived to tell the tale. "Are you sure this is it?" Malik asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Angela stepped forward, her face drawn but resolute. "This is it. Livia's been here for a while. She's been hiding from the Laurents, but she's not alone. There are others, people who've been protecting her." Keanu's gaze softened as he looked at Angela. "And you're sure she's ready for this? We don't know what kind of danger we're walking into. The Laurents won't hesitate to kill her if they have to." Angela's voice was steady, though there was a trace of sadness in her eyes. "Livia knows what's at stake. She's been trained for this, just like I was. She'll understand. But we have to be careful, Malik. This isn't just about finding her. This is about stopping the Laurent family from taking control of everything." Malik nodded, his stomach turning with the weight of the words. They had no choice but to keep going. The Laurents were coming, and if they didn't reach Livia first, the world would fall under their control. Livia's arrival. The farmhouse was eerily quiet. The small, creaky wooden door swung open to reveal a room dimly lit by candlelight. A tall, striking figure stood in the middle of the room, her back to them. She was dressed simply, but the way she held herself spoke of someone who had been forged in the fires of hardship and loss. Livia Laurent. Malik's breath caught in his throat. He had imagined her as a ghost, a mythical figure who existed only in the shadows of his mother's past. But now she was here, standing in front of him, real and alive. Livia turned around slowly, her eyes meeting theirs with an intensity that made Malik feel like she could see straight through him. "Angela," Livia said softly, her voice carrying an almost ethereal quality. "I knew you would come. I knew you would find me." Angela stepped forward, her eyes full of a deep affection that Malik had never seen before. "I'm sorry it took so long, Livia. We've been trying to keep you safe, but the Laurents are relentless. They know we're close." Livia nodded gravely. "I know. They've been hunting me my whole life. But it's not just about me anymore, is it?" Keanu stepped forward, his voice low. "The Laurents are after all of us now, but the real danger isn't just their power. It's what they've built, the empire that controls everything. If they find me, they'll take everything we've worked for, everything you've fought for." Livia's eyes darkened as she looked at Keanu. "I know. And that's why we have to stop them. But we can't do it alone." The Laurent family's true power. Malik felt the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. The Laurents weren't just a family. They were a force that had woven itself into the very fabric of society, into politics, economics, and everything in between. Their empire was vast, their influence suffocating, and Livia was the one thing that could bring it all crashing down. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" Livia continued, her voice steady. "The Laurent family has control over every major decision in the world. They've manipulated governments, businesses, and even wars. They've destroyed anyone who tried to stop them, and they won't hesitate to do the same to me." Keanu stepped forward, his eyes sharp. "Then we have to make sure they never find you. We need to make sure the Laurent family falls, not just for us, but for everyone they've destroyed. Livia's gaze hardened. We have a chance, but it won't be easy. The Laurents have eyes everywhere. If we're going to do this, we need to act fast. Angela nodded. We can't trust anyone outside of this room. The only way to beat them is from the inside. We need to expose their operations, their secrets. But Livia has to lead us. She's the key. Malik's head was spinning. He had gone from helping his mother with odd jobs to being part of a mission that could change the entire world. Livia, the heiress of a dynasty, the one person who could take down the Laurents, was standing before him, and it was their job to protect her, to ensure that the Laurents' grip on the world was finally broken. The decision to fight. Malik looked around at the people in the room, his mother, Keanu, and Livia. These were people who had lived through hell, who had fought to survive against the forces that tried to crush them. And now, Malik realized something. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the future. You're right, Malik said, his voice steady. We can't just hide anymore. We need to fight back. We need to expose them for who they really are. Livia's expression softened as she looked at him. You don't understand the risks. The Laurents will do anything to stop us. I don't care, Malik replied, his tone fierce. We've already come this far. We can't stop now. Angela nodded in agreement. We do this together. And we do it right. But we move fast. The final stand. It was time to put the plan into action. The Laurents had become more than a shadow in the distance. They were breathing down their necks. It was only a matter of time before they were found. And when that happened, there would be no escape. Keanu looked at Malik, then to Livia and Angela. This is it. No more running. We go for the heart of the Laurent family, where it all started. Livia nodded, determination burning in her eyes. We take them down at the source. We expose their secrets to the world. We make sure the Laurents never control anything again. Malik stood taller, his fists clenched. The battle was only beginning. But this time, they weren't just hiding. They were fighting back. Together.